Before becoming a judge, Ketanji Brown Jackson served years on the U.S. Sentencing Commission. BNC's Derrick Lewis has more on what that commission does and how it impacts people of color.
The U.S. Sentencing Commission has a lot of influence when it comes to how long people are sitting behind bars. While researchers say some of these sentences are not fair for people of color, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has played a huge role in working to make a difference.
The commission has the ability to affect the length of an individual's sentence by the rules that it makes.
Mary Price works with the Sentencing Commission to help people get a fair sentence.
The Sentencing Commission writes the rules, or what are called the guidelines, that guide judges in determining a sentence below, between and above the statutory mandatory minimum.
Price says sentences for crimes such as those convicted of crack cocaine compared to powder cocaine has had one of the biggest impacts on people of color. When the Sentencing Commission changed guidelines for those convicted to be more fair, then Commissioner Ketanji Brown Jackson played a big role in looking out for those already behind bars.
Judge Jackson spoke to the Sentencing Commission and to the public in support of announcing the commission's decision to make that change retroactive.
Price recalls being in the crowd listening to Jackson's speech.
It was a huge moment. I mean, it still gives me goosebumps to even think about it.
Jackson served on the Sentencing Commission from 2010 to 2014. In Houston, I'm Derrick Lewis for BNC.
Joining me to take a closer look at why Judge Jackson is Judge Vanessa Gilmore. Judge, thanks for joining. This is a culture-changing announcement, but why Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson?
Because the reason that she is very suited and very qualified at this point in time is because of the breadth of her experience. One of the things that you mentioned in the piece that you just showed was the fact that she had some work, extensive work on the Sentencing Commission. First of all, she served as an assistant special counsel on the Sentencing Commission from 2003 to 2005. And then she went on to become an assistant federal public defender, defending people that were to be sentenced under the sentencing guidelines. She was then confirmed by the United States Senate to be a commissioner in the Sentencing Commission, and not just a commissioner. She was the vice chair of a Sentencing Commission during the very important time when significant changes were being made to the way that federal judges were allowed to sentence under the sentencing guidelines involving drug cases.
Judge Jackson has nearly 9 years of experience on the bench. That is more than Thomas, Kagan, Barrett, and Roberts combined. All of them are sitting on the Supreme Court right now. So when people say she doesn't have the right experience, what are they actually talking about?
They're not talking about her work as a judge. They're certainly not talking about her education. They're certainly not talking about the breadth and range of experiences. She's had a range of experience on the civil side, doing mass torts, doing white-collar criminal defense, and then on the criminal side, not just as a judge, but because she was on the Sentencing Commission when it made the very important decision to vote to change the drastic disparity between sentences for crack and powder cocaine, which used to be a 100-to-1 ratio. You had to have 100 times as much powder cocaine to get the same sentence that you get for crack cocaine. She was on the Sentencing Commission when those changes were being made. Then she worked as a district judge, and I actually got to see the work that she did on the Sentencing Commission implemented in real time as she was charged with the responsibility of sentencing people that were to be sentenced under the sentencing guidelines. Because she was a district judge and then a judge on the Court of Appeals, it gave her a wide breadth of cases that she was able to work on. When she was on the district court, she was only reversed less than a dozen times out of almost 600 cases of hers that she wrote opinions on during the time that she was on the district court. She has the intellect, the ability, the breadth of experience to address the kinds of issues that are expected to come before the Supreme Court because of the types of work she did, small law firms, big law firms, assistant federal public defender, work on the Sentencing Commission. There's really nobody that has the breadth of experience that she has. If somebody is going to challenge her at this point in time, it cannot be on the basis of her qualifications for this job.
And what we're seeing right now is video of her having testified and been confirmed before by the Senate for these judicial positions. Bipartisan support, 3 confirmations. We have covered her experience, unmatched even on the court right now. She's young. She can stay there for the rest of her life. What is going to keep her, if anything, from getting conformed to the high court?
I can't think of anything in terms of the qualifications that should be considered with respect to looking at whether or not someone is qualified to sit on the high court of the land. The only thing that could come into play that would get in her way at this point in time would be strictly politics. And I hope that that will not be the case, that people will look at her and judge her on the basis of her record, on the basis of her ability, and that they will not let politics take this moment away from her. I feel confident that anybody who looks at this objectively, any of the 100 senators that look at this objectively, will be able to cast a vote in her favor without any reservation. And I hope that politics does not interfere with that.
Indeed, those who confirmed her before in the Senate are still in that position to consider her nomination to Supreme Court. Senator Lindsey Graham making comments that suggest that his support this time right now might be up for grabs, and that goes to, again, the politics involved with the court right now, which is looking at really high-profile cases on abortion, gun control, religious liberty. That's just in the coming months. So how important is it to get her confirmed and seated ahead of these issues?
Well, I think it's important to get her confirmed and seated no matter what. We need a brilliant mind like hers on the court. But frankly, her placement on the court, even if she is in the vein of a Justice Breyer, is not going to change the political makeup of the court. It is still going to be solidly 6-3 with 6 in the conservative camp. The change of the Supreme Court has happened over a course of decades. Nixon appointed 4 justices, Reagan appointed 3, Trump appointed 3 justices. The 2020 term of the Supreme Court saw more 6-3 opinions issued by the court than any other term in the court's history. There were 12 6-3 opinions out of only 54 opinions that were issued in the 2020 term. Justice Breyer's replacement, even if it is someone that leans toward the liberal side of the court as he did, is not going to change the conservative bent and makeup of the court. It is not going to change the fact that 12 cases in the 2020 term were decided 6-3 along ideological lines. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson being placed on the court is not going to have any impact on the way that the current makeup of the court exists.
Which then makes it about the politics and what the Republican minority will choose to do with this fact that the outcome may not change until 2024, but maybe they'll try to score some points in the meantime. And I will mention, though, that Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Jackson are the same age, so having 2 women on opposite sides of the political and ideological spectrum, having a lifetime appointment to the court will only help with balance in the long run. Judge Vanessa Gilmore, thank you for joining me tonight.